What's up, everyone? It's me, Chris, once again, here to talk a little bit about the boxing events over the weekend, fights I saw and whatnot. First off, I finally got to see Calzaghe Jones. As anyone that watches my videos knows, I didn't order it on pay-per-view, so it was kind of interesting to watch it afterwards, after hearing what happened and being able to look at it from that perspective, what to look for, To be honest, from what I've read and heard from people, I thought it would have been more of a one-sided fight. Granted, Calzaghe won the fight and controlled it, but once he got the cut on Roy, he pretty much dominated. But up until then, he dominated the fight and controlled it, but he wasn't like blowing Roy out the water or anything, Roy just wasn't active enough. He did land some clean counters here and there, but he just wasn't active enough, He didn't look nearly as fast as he did in the Trinidad fight earlier in the year. Whether that has to do with the speed difference between Calzaghe and Trinidad, I'm not sure, but he didn't look as fast. Calzaghe, did what he needed to do, got the win. As I said prior, I'd probably recommend both these guys retire. I mean, I'm not saying Calzaghe needs to retire, but he has mentioned it, and I don't really see a lot of fights out there for him right now. I don't think he wants the Hopkins rematch from what he said. Chad Dawson, that fight, even if he wins, which I would probably take him, but be a good fight. I don't think that's really going to do much for his resume, so I don't even know if he'd be up for that fight. HBO was trying to mention Jermaine Taylor as a possible opponent. They're not even in the same weight class, I mean, Taylor barely got up to the super middleweight, so I don't think we should be talking about him at light heavyweight, and I don't think he'd win that fight either, to be honest. The only fight I'd really like to see him in is against Glenn Johnson. Johnson called him out last week. I guess they were supposed to fight a few times prior, but Calzaghe pulled out due to injury. I don't think Calzaghe really is looking for that fight. It's not probably big enough in his eyes, but I'd like to see it because I think their styles mesh well. And I think it'd make for a good fight. Although I do think Calzaghe would win, but either way I think it'd be a good, really exciting, entertaining fight for the fans. As for Roy, I think he should retire as well. He's got nothing left to prove. I don't know how much he has left in the tank after this Calzaghe fight. He got whooped up worse than I've ever seen him whooped up, except when he got KO'd. There's not really any other fights out there for him. Maybe Hopkins, but, what's that fight really going to prove at this point? And if he loses, he's just going to have another loss on his ledger, and that's not going to do him any good. That's not going to look good on his resume or in the annals of history. I heard a lot of people say things like, Roy hasn't been the same since he went up to heavyweight, and this is true, but the fact of the matter is he went up to heavyweight to take a chance to make history, which he did. So everything after there, maybe he hasn't been the same. His body wasn't able to handle the weight loss, gain and loss. It's a chance he took, you know what I'm saying? It's it's like a risk and reward. He took the risk, and it was a reward, but on the back end of his career, it's not, working out so well for him, but, play the cards you're dealt, I guess, you know what I'm saying? As for Calzaghe, I've also heard people saying he's still not good, garbage fighter or whatnot. Roy would have killed him in his prime, same with Hopkins. I don't know if Calzaghe's, the best fighter of his era in his weight division or whatnot. But the fact of the matter is he beat everyone that was put in front of him. He won that Lacy fight. He won that Kessler fight. Both those guys were undefeated going in. Those were almost pick 'em fights. No one was giving Calzaghe the overwhelming favor in either of those fights, He beat Roy. He beat Bernard. So say what you want. He beat the guys that were in front of him. So, I give him respect and credit for that. Moving on. We got a Jermaine Taylor-Jeff Lacy fight that I saw. Oh yeah, real quick about Roy. He might as well just retire anyway, like I said. His legacy secured. I think I said it before in a prior video. There's no point in him taking any more unnecessary risks, possibly getting hurt, just go out, on your own terms, and, I think now's the time to call it a career. Anyways, back to Taylor Lacy. This fight pretty much went the way I thought it would. Taylor won, pretty much controlled the fight from the outset. Just controlled the fight, boxed, kept Jermaine on the outside of his jab. Jeff on the outside of his jab. Jeff would try to jump in and lunge in with big hooks and punches, but he could never really get close or put anything on Jermaine Taylor of any significance. He did get that one KO. That one knockdown. I don't remember if it was a knockdown or not. It wasn't called a knockdown. It was hard to tell even on the replay if it was a knockdown or a push or a slip or what happened there. But Jermaine controlled the fight and won a decision pretty easily. I have to give credit to Jeff, though. I think he actually looked better in this loss than he looked in his previous 3 fights, which were wins. I didn't think he had anything left in the tank after that last fight against Mendoza, but, he took a lot of big shots here and he made it through. As for Jermaine, Like I said, the HBO announcers are trying to talk up a Calzaghe fight. He's not even in that weight division, and I don't think he'd beat Calzaghe anyway, to be honest. But that's just my opinion. But there are some fights out there I'd like to see Jermaine take, though. I'd like to see him fight maybe a Sakio Bika fight. I think that'd be a good fight. I don't think he's ready for Kessler quite yet. I'd like to see him fight maybe Alan Green. I think he'd win that fight, but it'd be interesting. Or maybe not. I don't know. It'd be kind of intriguing going into it, I think. You know, he's got Labrado Andrade's out there. That'd make for a pretty interesting fight. So there's names out there. Edson Miranda. There's guys out there, you know, so he can get his feet set in the division. Although this win gave him the #1 contendership for the WBC title in that division. I don't know how that's possible. I don't really understand that. You know, one fight in the division, you're already the #1 contender. You know, and you lost your prior fight, although it wasn't the same division. It just, I don't get it. You know, I mean, I do. It's probably like, you know, political money, exchanging hands type of deal, but it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make boxing look too good. But whatever, it is what it is. As for Lacy, you know, I don't know what he's going to do from here. I don't know how much he has left, but hopefully, you know, he can. They should give him some easy fights, you know, get his confidence back, not give him such tough fights, some fights where he can get some easy wins, blow some guys away, and, you know, set him up and put him back in with the guy maybe in the top 10 and see how he takes it and where he should go from there. Oh, another thing about that fight, though, Jim Lampley. I was going to say Calzaghe, my bad. Dude, he once again, I said it before, he was a Jermaine Taylor fan. He was bugging me, man, talking about Jermaine Taylor this and Jermaine Taylor that, and, you know, talking him up and kind of disparaging Lacy and Lacy's career. You know, it's just uncalled for, you know what I'm saying? Saying Lacy never really accomplished much, or, you know, if Lacy had been brought up on HBO airwaves, I have a feeling his opinion would be very different from him, but he's a Taylor fan. It's ridiculous. He should try to be a little more unbiased when he calls fights, in my opinion. You know, I just don't need to hear who your favorite fighters are, whether you say it or not. Other fights over the weekend, or over the prior week, whatever it is. Sakio Bika beat Peter Manfredo Jr. That fight kind of went how I thought it would. I didn't think Bika would stop Manfredo so easily, but he looked good. Manfredo needs to go back down to the 160. He ain't got nothing at 168. As for Bika, like I said, I'd like to see him against maybe a Jermaine Taylor. Maybe Jeff Lacy. That'd make it a good fight. Labrado Andrade. That'd be a really interesting, exciting fight to watch. Edson Miranda, you know, any of those guys. So he's an entertaining fighter to watch. David Haye beat Monty Barrett. Didn't see the fight. Sound like Haye handled Barrett. I'm not surprised. I said before, I think Barrett's shot. I don't want to say he's shot, man. I don't want to bash fighters, but sounds like he doesn't really have anything left. You know, hopefully he'll retire after this fight. You know, no one wants to see a guy get hurt. As for Haye, can't say much. Have to see him fight a real heavyweight contender before I can make an assessment of him in this division. Last up, Barrett and Cintron beat Lovemore Endo. They didn't show this fight. Went to decision. Sounded like, you know, workmanlike performance. Good to see, I guess, Kermit get a win. I think he can make some interesting fights next year. I'd like to see him fight Cotto, you know, an all Puerto Rican showdown. I think their styles would make for a good fight. Cintron doesn't seem to handle pressure fighters well, which Cotto can be, but it'd be interesting to see if Cotto could handle Cintron's power. Other than that, I'd like to see Cintron fight maybe a Berto or a Paul Williams. You know, there's fights out there for him, so we'll see where his career goes. But that's it for now. I'll probably be back later in the week to give a prediction on Hatton Malinowski. Maybe even later today. We'll see. But until then, I'm out of here. Bye.